Welcome to Fantasy Football Hub. Today I'm joined by FPLSalah to preview the upcoming Game Week 37. Now at the time of recording, we still have one fixture to go in double Game Week 36. A big fixture at that, Abdul. We're just chatting about the relevance of that fixture to your team. But as it stands, even with a lot of players to go, you're on a green arrow.
Yeah, I'm on a barely. I've gone like from 101k to 100k. So yeah, a lot depends on, I think, Isaac tonight is my captain, and Trippier is quite low owned as well. Newcastle defence, and yeah, McAllister is my lowest owned Brighton player. So yeah, need some big hauls from them.
Let's have a look at the team as it stands, because obviously, as you say, 6 players still to go that could have a big swing on this game week. Talk to me about the bench, because a lot of points coming off there. I've taken your rank as a live rank rather than what it says on the website, just because I think that's a little bit more accurate. You're going to get Ederson on, you're going to get Shaw on as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I got lucky with Kepa being dropped and Ederson keeping his first clean sheet and getting 2 bonus points.
Yeah.
And I think with Shaw, I mean, I was 90% sure that Rashford was going to be out. And I thought that, he's either going to start or be out completely. So yeah, I'm getting Shaw's 8 points off the bench, but I think I expected that anyway. So yeah, happy with that. I mean, obviously, the main kind of damage to my rank was Trent again. I think the decision not to bring him in carries on to punish me. So yeah, let's see. Hopefully, he keeps quiet for the last 2 game weeks.
And in terms of tonight's fixture, what are you thinking there?
I think it'll be an open game because, Brighton, I mean, you saw against Arsenal, they played it from the back, even against Arsenal, who are one of the best attacking teams in the league. They're going to do the same against Newcastle. And Newcastle have got, pace on the break. So I see that game being kind of end to end, really. On paper, it looks that way anyway. So hoping for a high score line. Hopefully, Trippier gets in the action as well. He's been, teasing a lot. He's got like the highest XGI amongst all defenders in the last 6 games, but hasn't got anything to show for it. So yeah, he's due.
When you have 6 players like this, all in the same fixture, are you hoping for? See, you have 2 Newcastle defenders. Are you hoping for a Newcastle clean sheet? But then, in the knowledge that also cancels out your midfielders, like, what are you really hoping for?
I mean, if you're asking what I'm hoping for like a goal fest with all the players involved.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Like a 3-3 or a 4-4. But I mean, I guess realistically, if Newcastle, win 2-0, Isaac's involved and they get a clean sheet, then that'd probably be a really good scenario for me.
Okay, so potential for a big green incoming because. Yeah, still 6 players to go tonight. Let's have a look at your team for the upcoming game week then. It looks pretty good, to be fair. Team rating 92%, game week rating 94%, as it has been for a long time, according to Fantasy Football Hub's My Team tool. The numbers, at least the algorithm numbers, suggest that you're in for a good week once again. Obviously, it doesn't always play out like that. Talk to me just what you're thinking off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, originally, Jack, my plan was to do Trippier to Diaz this week, right? So that was from like two game weeks ago. But I think things have changed now because then we kind of assumed that City would still be in the kind of Arsenal would still be kind of in the title hunt. But the way it's kind of transpired is that pretty much if Man City beat Chelsea on Sunday, then the league's over. So. There's bound to be rotation in that Brighton game. I think City's second game of the double. So I think for me, Man City players are off the menu. So I'm probably looking at saving the transfer now, to be honest, because I mean I really do want to go into Game Week 38 with 2 free transfers. If the situation was different with Arsenal, if they were still on level on points, and I probably would do the Man City defender in, but. Not at the moment. I think the way it's kind of transpired, basically, if Arsenal, lose to Forest, just say, what kind of worst case scenario, then City have won the league without even stepping foot on the pitch. So, then we could see rotation in the Chelsea game. But I think realistically, Arsenal will beat Forest, and City will play like a full strength team against Chelsea, most likely win, and then the rotation will come in the Brighton game. So yeah, I just think if you've got City players there at the moment, keep them. And then I think transferring City players in this week is really risky.
I think we just need to talk more about City players, to be fair, and especially in regards to captaincy.
Yeah.
According to the tool here, it's on Bruno Fernandes. He has the highest expected points.
Oh, right.
But what are
Okay.
you going to do?
Well, mine's on Haaland, right? And I'll tell
Yeah.
you why, because obviously, as I was just mentioned there, the rotation risk. But I was having a look at, Haaland's season. He's pretty much started every game he's been fit this season. So he missed out in game week 14 against Leicester City due to a bruised toe. So he was injured, and then in game week 15 he actually came off the bench because he was obviously he was being bedded back in from his injury. And then in game week 29, I think it was, game week 29 against Liverpool, he missed out. That was just before the international break, so he missed out with a groin injury. So those are two games he missed through injury. Every other game, he's been fit for he started, and that's including when City have had important midweek fixtures in the Champions League, etc. So I think honestly, I mean, if I was to bet on one player to start not only the two games in the double, but the remaining three league games, I'd say it'd be Haaland from City.
Wow.
So I do think he will start, and he's he's got records to break. He probably wants to hit that 40 league goal mark. He probably will get reduced minutes in terms of I think Pep will probably take him off sooner than he would have in in a normal circumstance when the league was still on the line. But I do think he starts all the games, and and for that reason, I'm going to captain him. But on the other side, if there was a game that he was going to be benched in, then you'd think it'd be that Brighton game if obviously City beat Chelsea.
Yeah.
You think, if there's one game he's going to be benching this season, it'd probably be that one. And also, I do think, it's quite interesting because I was looking at the schedule. So they play game week 38 against Brentford, and then 6 days later, on the 3rd of June, they've got the FA Cup final. So I think they'll use that Brentford game as like a practice match for their FA Cup final and the Champions League final. So I do think that Brentford game is going to be pretty much or near to full strength, and it's going to be a similar team to what they play in the two remaining finals they've got.
So I guess just because the league pretty much is done now doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to just start changing their entire team. Still have massive trophies to compete for, of course. Okay, so that is your captain sewn up.
Mm-hmm.
What about Ederson? Because you've just mentioned there that you think Haaland is the most likely to play or start every game from now to the end of the season. Does that mean you have worries about Ederson?
I am worried about Ederson, and mostly because he played Ortega in game week 34 in that second game, and so there is a doubt there. But again, I think Ederson probably has I would say probably the second or third player in that City team who's most likely to start the two games after Haaland, right? And the reason I say that is because, there's a chance he gets one game in game week 37, but Ortega has played every single FA Cup game so far this season, right? So I think he probably will play the final.
Right.
If Pep sticks to that. So if he does, then there's a chance that, Ortega gets game week 38. So if Ortega gets game week 38, then I think, Ederson will probably play two games in 37.
Sure.
But what he could do is obviously, in the Champions League final, he's going to play Ederson. So he might use that Brentford game to play Ederson. You know what I mean? So there's a few scenarios. I mean, it depends which. I mean, there's a few scenarios which could play out, but definitely there's doubt there that Ederson doesn't play the two games. But again, if you've got him, you've got to stick to him. But if you're thinking about buying him, then it's probably a no-go.
Okay, and then final point on City players in general. If you own the likes of a Diaz, a Stones, a Grealish, a Mahrez, players like that, the double looks pretty enticing. But as you say, how do you decide whether to keep these players for this double? Do you just go with it and risk it because they have two good fixtures and they are City, knowing that there is going to be rotation? What do you suggest there?
I mean, I think with City, it's a don't buy, don't sell. Okay. Unless you've got somebody like maybe like somebody really rotation prone like Gundogan, who probably won't get much game time, I think, over the next few game weeks. But generally, like Grealish, Mahrez, Haaland, Diaz, Stones, Ederson, I think if you've got them, then you've got to stick with them because really only Pep knows what he's going to do. I mean, so I think, if you get rid of them, there's a chance that the player you get rid of, will probably, could play two games. I think if you do want to get rid of them, then, for example, if you've got a Mahrez or a Grealish there and you're not sure, then, the only other move there is to another double game week player, like a Bruno Fernandes or a Rashford if you don't have him. But otherwise, I think it's a stick.
Quick point on Rashford. Do you think he's fine to play these games? How many minutes do you think he's going to get across these two?
Yeah, I mean, he was back in full training, which tells me that was early in the week, which tells me that his injury wasn't serious, and he probably, I think, could have played game week 36, but I guess it was just I guess Eric Ten Hag was being cautious with that.
Mm.
The fact that he was in kind of training so early kind of tells me that. So I'm pretty confident he gets a fair amount of minutes in game week 37. I mean, definitely, there's not enough worry there to get rid of
Okay.
Rashford.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, he's definitely a keep.
Okay, let's talk about Game Week 37 players that stand out to you. You said you're rolling the transfer. If you weren't to be rolling the transfer, if you already had to and you had to do something, are there any kind of fun picks that you have your eye on, or players that you kind of wish that you had this week that you can't really get to because, of course, rolling the transfer makes sense for your team?
You know what? I don't think so, because I think I've got quite a few. I mean, the most exciting, the best fixture for this game week is City, right? And I think they've kind of just kind of deflated the situation. I think Chelsea. I mean, you really don't want to go near any Chelsea assets. They've got a really tough double. Um, I think Brighton have got a good double. I think with Southampton and Man City both at home, but again with that Southampton fixture, that could be the fixture where kind of Brighton rotate as well. And I think I think Matoma, McAllister, and Estupian and Steele, everyone's got three of those four. So and they're the best assets. So I really think it's only and then for United, I think obviously Rashford, Bruno, and Sean and De Gea are the kind of clear best options, right? So I think City were the only team where was the exciting pick where you can kind of go for it. But I still think there is, I mean, there is kind of merit in going for a City player, but you just have to be prepared for a benching, and it's just have to know it's really risky. I mean, something like Amara is could be a great option. Even Foden, because if Pep kind of rotates over the next few games, then he's going to be in there. Alvarez as well, all good options.
Yeah, it feels like one of those may well just play both and Hall, as we often see with a City player, but it's just trying to find who that player is. That's obviously the extremely difficult task. Okay, last thing I want to ask you about your team in particular is the bench, really, and your thoughts on benching headaches this week and who to play ahead of who. So let's just go through your team. Trippier, as it stands, you've mentioned about his underlying stats and his points dodging over the last, good number of weeks, to be fair. If you actually look back at just his points, they've been pretty awful for a good 10 game weeks now. Are you going to start him, or are you looking at starting Robertson as well? It's a tough one for your team.
I mean, personally, I'm starting Trippier. I think for me that's not an easy decision, but I think he's clear enough to start him quite convincingly with Robertson. Again, if Trent was there, I keep thinking about Trent. Obviously he would start and then Trippier would be benched, but I do think there's Trent is closer to Trippier than he is to Robbo. So yeah, so I think my team selection this week is fairly simple, to be honest. I think Robbo bench, Botman second, and then Greenwood last, and then I'm going to play Kepa over. I'm going to play Ederson over Kepa because Kepa's been dropped as well. I'm not sure if that's just for the one game or whether it's for the rest of the season or what. I mean, you could play 2 games in the double. You could only play 1. I'd rather take a risk on Ederson than Kepa with those fixtures. So I do think the team is fairly simple in terms of the setup. And then I think transfer wise, I was saying earlier, I think I'm very likely to save the transfer this week, just because I've got most of the double game week players there. The best ones from the teams that are doubling, and the only kind of really move I see there is one of my players to a City player, and I'd rather have 2 free transfers in 38 and kind of take a risk there, or like kind of take a punt there, or kind of because by game week 38, there's going to be like a lot of teams who have got things to play for, and the title wrapped up, the relegation battle, things like that. So I have a much clearer picture, and there's always rotation in game week 38. Always rotation. There's always goals, and there's always surprises in the team sheets. And kind of furthermore, Jack, is that all the games kick off at the same time. which is going to be carnage because
Yeah.
there's bound to be a lot of early team news coming out, and yeah, so we're going to have to be kind of glued to the monitor at deadline time.
38 is always absolutely mental, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe there'll be less. It's a weird one because you know how the deadline has gone back to kind of counteract the fact that we were getting those official leaks, but now we're getting unofficial leaks that are often very, very accurate. So I don't know. It's even, you have to be honest, be even more online now because now you don't know whether you're going to get the leaks or not. Whereas before, at least you knew 15 minutes before deadline you're going to get the leaks. But
I mean,
it is what it is.
For me, I think they need to move the deadline to kick off. I know that's quite selfish, and because that doesn't maybe suit people from other kind of time zones, but I would love for the deadline to be moved at the first kickoff.
I think it does and it doesn't, because for people in other time zones, if you're really into FPL, you're probably going to have to get up anyway. If you need the team news, you're going to be setting alarms. I know a lot of people internationally do set alarms for team news that never comes. So if the deadline was set to the kickoff time, then at least you could set the alarm at whatever time it would be in silly o'clock. But at least you get up, do it, and then go back to sleep, and at least you know, rather than having to like go on group chats, Twitter, look through all that stuff for information that may not even be there.
Yeah, and I think overall, Jack, I would level the playing field, like, you know, on the grand scheme of things, because I think right now the only kind of FPL managers who get the team leaks are, you know, the guys who are on Twitter and social media, whereas now it'd be like the whole kind of player base. So it would level the playing field.
Well, hopefully that's a change that's incoming, because it does make a lot of sense to me.
Hopefully,
but yeah. As for this week, though, team's looking good once again. Didn't want to go into 38 because, as you say, a lot can change from 37 until that point, and your transfer, you can't really, I mean, I'm sure you have your own ideas of what you may do, but things could easily change. One more game still to go this evening. Best of luck in it. I know a lot of us watching right now probably do have a lot of players in that fixture. Could be huge variance once again. But yeah, with that all being said, Abdul, thank you very much for those tips and advice. And guys, we'll see you all next week with the next Game Week preview.